awkward situation if you don't try to force something to make it in a natural relationship. Follow your natural leadings in those areas. Another relationship that works out so well is particularly the young moms that have young children can relate to one another, can have ministry. I'll take care of your kids today so you can have ministry today. Will you take care of mine tomorrow? And you have groupings of parents that can help release one another. Now, again, that has to go on natural flows of relationship. Those are not things that are assigned. You can't say, well, these parents will have to take care of these kids and so on. It won't work. We follow our natural relationships. But it's one of the advantages that we have. And sometimes you'll see a group of young moms that are so well related together, and you'll have just a flow. And they just trade back and forth with their kids, and it's just a real flow. And other times I've seen there's just no flow at all. It's just not a natural relationship between these particular women. It doesn't work. Their interests are different, and it just doesn't work. Well, don't try to force it to happen. Allow the natural relationships to flow. We also, and we talk about the hats, we also have to honor appointings and anointings. If you are called and anointed and appointed to be a council member, an elder in that community, then you walk in that anointing and appointing. If you are the man and you're called for that, then your wife is not called, you are. If you're called to be a leader, your wife doesn't have to, automatically become Mrs. Leader. It's not any different than if you married a banker, you don't the next day become a banker. But we honor gifts and callings. Now, this can get a little tricky because so many times wives informally are helping the husbands, but it's never been formalized. And everybody recognizes they work as a team together. If they're both there, you can ask either one of them the question because they're a team together. It's real obvious. But many times in those areas, it's only been the husband's gift that's had the recognition hat. That's not quite fair. And it can get a little tricky. And so it's important for us to wear the right hat at the right time and have that acknowledged. If you are working in a leadership role, whatever role it is, it doesn't even have to be leadership, it can be counseling or anything, because we're all close, always honor integrity and confidentiality. And sometimes you have to honor it. Because if you just flipped your ear a little bit to the left, you'd hear it all. Because we live very close together in some situations. One time I was reading a book by Basilea Schlink, You'll Never Be the Same. I was getting convicted on every chapter. It's not the kind of book you want to sit and read at a whole one sitting. But I opened up the book, and here it was, and the title of this chapter was Curiosity. I thought, oh, curiosity is a good thing, and I've got lots of that. I won't get convicted on this. I realized that she was using a nice word for being a snoop, for being involved with what wasn't your business. And because we live so close, friends, we can do a lot of this. And we don't honor anointings and appointings. And what I realized at the time I had this conviction, I was not a council member on our campus. Most of the council meetings happened right in my living room. Many times, and we were living in 3 rooms. You need to know that in my 30 years of marriage, and 25 of those, I've lived in 1 room or 3 rooms, or no room, cars. I didn't count tents and huts and stuff. I put that in the 1 room. So I know what it is to live close in community. And I realized that these meetings that happened right in my living room, most of the stuff that was going on, I already knew about. Some of it I was involved with. I was sort of the informal member. And when this happened, I thought, wow, I shouldn't be doing that. I am not anointed or appointed. I can be for one meeting because it's happening in my living room. I can hear it. Obviously, they wouldn't do it in front of me if they were worried about my confidentiality. But what I felt God was showing me, that there is an anointing and appointing that comes with responsibilities. And if you don't have that, and I was trying to take on the knowledge of that anointing and appointing, and I hadn't been anointed for it. And so I learned to whistle and sing and leave. And make it a way of life not to walk slow when a conversation was going on. And we really have to watch that in our close community living. We have to honor appointings and anointings. And I think it's probably more serious than what we think it is. And what can happen, guys, is you can hear half a conversation and carry a terrible weight because you don't know the rest of it. And you can jump to conclusions that are unrighteous because you didn't hear all of it, and you need to check your minds. In the Old Testament, in the book of Samuel, you have Saul getting ready to go out to battle. And the people are trembling. He's obviously lost his anointing. The people have no faith in him. They don't want to follow him. And they are trembling and worried. And old Sam the prophet comes by, Samuel. And he said to him, listen, we're going out to war in about 7 days. I need you to come back and build an altar here and sacrifice so that the people will have more security. And so he plans on that. For some reason, Samuel is detained. Now, Saul knew probably how to build an altar. It probably wasn't all that difficult, probably just a certain amount of rocks and a certain height and stick the fire on it. I doubt that it was technically a difficult thing for him to do. But what he did, he built the altar, put the sacrifice on it, and played the role of the prophet, and he wasn't. And he's just getting started on this, and Samuel comes by and says, what is this that you are doing? This is a foolish thing that you are doing, and the kingdom will be taken away from you. And it was a strong judgment. And I see from that story, friends, that we need to respect anointings and appointings. If you've been called to be the base leader, if you've been called to be the school leader, pray down God's anointing upon yourself and walk in that anointing. If you are not the school leader, then don't try to pick up the weights of being the school leader. Try to be the staff member that God's anointed, appointed you to be, or serve them. And I'm not talking about seeing these people as holier than thou, and you can't give them any constructive criticism or say anything. Everything they can do is perfect. I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about when you take on their particular call and you act like it's yours in your heart. Are you with me? And you take on their responsibilities. And in your heart, you're not serving them. You're usurping their authority. If I would do such and such and such and such and such. Well, someday you may get your opportunity. But for right now, help them do the job that they've called to be. And let's really respect the anointings and the appointings of God. And well, you say, he's just my mate. Yeah, but God appointed him to that role, and he's appointed you to this role, and we're supposed to be a body working together. And each of these things, friends, that God puts his hand on, let's not make light of, all right? And so oftentimes we don't have the same kind of respect that we would if we were in a fellowship, a church, with those that are in leadership, because, we brush our teeth beside them. And I believe that can be a pitfall to us in living in community together. But let's honor and respect those anointings, all right?
About 2/3 of it would come from government sources. Catholic Prison Ministry, for example, in the past has had something like 6 sources of money, and it's often difficult juggling sources of money, some of which is coming to an end, and some of which you've constantly got to seek new sources of funding. Overall, there's, as you say, a wide variety of social needs in programs being conducted through the church.